difficulties with audio for a second, so I apologize.
No problem.
Looks like we have 9 people here, so it looks like we have a quorum.
Okay. Was it 7 to quorum?
Okay, we are now live streaming.
Oh, hold on.
Okay, we are. I see the live. Now I know what to look for. All right, we good to go, Andy?
Yeah, I need to find out. Tina, are you here as a member today? I'm gonna move Tina over. I think you guys can start.
Okay. So I will go ahead and call the legislative committee meeting to order, and I will ask to have the roll call, please.
Okay, Gibbons. Gibbons is absent. Chow is absent. Blankley
Here.
Lee is present. Flagger
Here.
is present. Mock
Present.
is present. Sayok is absent. Montano
Here.
is present. Turner is absent. Constantine's present. Kamei is absent. Dubois
Turner is present.
Turner
Melissa
is present.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Gibbons is also present now too, as well.
Okay,
All right.
thank
Apologize.
you.
I
I'll
opened
let
the wrong
everyone
link.
know. Okay, and Dubois is present.
Yes.
Thank you. Jones
Present.
is present. Watanabe
Here.
is present. Zhao
Present.
is present. And Larson
Here.
is present. Did anyone else join while I was taking roll? Who was not called? Okay, thank you.
So Auden, Larry Klein is here as well, Mayor Klein, and he is not a member of the legislative committee, but he is a member of the executive board. So just to let you know that he is present as well. Laura Provetti is here as well.
And we seem to have 2 Kathy Watanabes. So I'm sorry, I don't know your name. You have your hand up. So
That is very weird. I'm sorry, I'm Anthony Becker. I think I'm the alternate, and they were telling me I had to log into this. And
We'll move you over
clicked
and change your name. Thanks for coming.
Thank
Okay.
bye, Kathy number 2. Okay,
Well,
we good to go?
that was wrong.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. As you all are aware, because I'm the one talking right now, is that I am the new chair. It's because I missed a meeting, and at that meeting, they made me chair. So I want to thank Mayor Flagor for her fantastic stewardship of this committee. There are big shoes to fill. You have set the bar very high, so high that I'm just going to walk under it. I'm not even going to try to walk over it. So welcome everybody. And
Thank you, Rich.
My pleasure. So my hope is to, and you'll find that sometimes I don't have the right words, but find that this committee has more relevance. And what I mean by that is there's a perception that we're always saying no to everything. And actually, the League of California Cities went through this a few years back. You know, the League of California Cities was known as the League of No. And I think that when you are just if an entity's going to look at you as just saying, well, they're just going to say no, then our opinions get discounted. So I want this committee to work in a more collaborative way. And I'm not saying that we haven't been, but I'm just, again, trying to figure out a way to alleviate this perception that people may have of us as being the association of no, by basically trying to work in a collaborative manner and in a positive manner. But by no means, if there's something that we are completely against, we will fight it to the nth degree. But where we can find compromise, I think we should try and do that. So that's really going to be my main emphasis for trying to work through these many bills. And you'll see on the agenda that we have a lot of bills listed. It's not because we're going to talk about all of them, but it's just so that if any one of us have one particular bill that we would like to bring up, it's been put on the agenda. So legally, we can go ahead and talk about that. So that's why that list is there. So with that, I will ask, we have one consent calendar item, which is the minutes from the October 8th meeting. I'll remind my colleagues that even if you weren't present at that meeting, you can vote for it. You don't have to abstain or recuse yourself. So I will ask for a motion.
So moved.
First I'll ask if there's any amendments to the minutes from October 8th. I see none. I heard a motion by Vice Mayor Jones.
That's correct.
Okay.
Second.
I have multiple seconds.
I heard Gibbons.
Okay, we'll give it to Gibbon.
Sorry, I didn't hear Nisa.
Okay. Nisa who? Okay, could we have a vote, please?
Okay. Gibbons,
Aye.
Chow. Chow's absent. Blankley,
Yes.
Blankley, aye. Flagger,
Yes.
Flagger, aye. Mock,
Abstain.
Mock abstain. Sayak, Sayak is absent. Montano,
Aye.
Montano, aye. Turner,
Aye.
Turner, aye. Constantine,
Aye.
Constantine, aye. Kame,
Yes.
Kame, aye. Dubois,
Yes.
Dubois, aye. Jones,
Aye.
Jones, aye. Becker,
No, it's
or
Kathy
no?
and Watanabe.
Okay,
That's okay.
okay, thank you.
Okay, and I say aye.
Okay, aye.
Thank
Zhao,
you.
Aye.
Zhao, aye. And Larson,
Aye.
Larson, aye. And with 12 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. And what's the quorum?
8.
8 is the quorum. Okay. Yes, that would be for 15. Yes. Okay, that would work. Yeah, I can do the math. I can do that quickly. Okay. So I will now turn this over to my able assistant, Andy. You have the floor for the information for the committee.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to share
We
screen
do have a
here.
hand up. So yes, Liz.
So, sorry, there was one bill that is being sponsored by the CCAs regarding power. Can that be added to the list?
What's the bill
We may-
number?
SB 612.
SB 612.
So we can't add it to the
It's there.
list to be.
No, it's there.
Oh, it's there? Okay, great.
It's on the list.
So, all right, I missed it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And go ahead, Andy.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm just trying to bring up my handy dandy agenda for everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. We're going to give you just a little rundown of the legislative committee since we are beginning again and we have some new members here. And I'm hoping, can everyone see the agenda so far? I just want to draw your attention to the legislative guiding principles. The legislative guiding principles were first developed in 2000, and first time they were adopted was in 2017. There is a link on the agenda, and I've just clicked on it to show you that. What the legislative guiding principles do, they're principles that the board approves, and they were last approved a year ago. I'm sorry, they're approved in 2019 the last time. This allows the president and the executive director to take action, usually in conjunction with the Legislative Action Committee chair, in between meetings during a legislative session. And so I'm just drawing your attention to this to see that I know some people worry that if a bill comes up that we are unable to take action. That's not true. As long as we have at some point taken an action on an issue or adopted in our guiding principles, we are allowed to do so. Okay, sorry, I'm on one screen tonight and I might have a little difficulty. Then the next is we also have a similar housing priority statement, and we first adopted this in 2019 because of CASA, and then we amended it last year because it was a little bit CASA specific, and it was amended last year by the Legislative Action Committee, and then again approved by the board. And so I draw your attention to this to see kind of what we have developed as our policy statements regarding housing. Okay. I want to make sure that everybody knows that they can find the legislative agenda or the legislative calendar for both the, which is found, this is on our website, but it is also, you can find it on the legislature's website. And then, sorry, too many. And then I want to draw your attention to our bill tracker on the for the Cities Association. We use a lot of different sources to look at bills, including the League of California Cities. We look at various nonprofits or advocacy organizations on both sides to make sure that we're looking at things, and we also work with your city staff. And so this has been, we put it, Auden and I put an initial list together with a lot of coordination with Seth Miller with the League of California Cities, and then we set this this out to your staff, and your staff also made comment, and some made comments or maybe added bills as well. So we try to help each other along. Now, mind you, it's Auden and I trying to keep track of this. If there's something that you want to look at, you're welcome to contact. The way to get something on an agenda is either to mention it to a committee or also to make sure that you you can send an email to Rich and I, and we'll add it to the agenda. And it's always the just the will of the group as we move forward. We also do work with SVCE as well. We have a lengthy number of bills on here because a few years ago we did have an organization want to file a Brown Act complaint or what have you, because the bills hadn't, we were discussing at that time it was local ballot measures, and we had just written on the agenda that we would be, it was open for local ballot measures, which there were only a few, and they said that wasn't specific enough. And so we, after discussing with attorneys from several cities, we have decided to just list bills that we could discuss. We will try to be more specific in the future, but as this is our first meeting, this is where we are. Okay, Rich, I hand it back to you, or would you?
No, why don't I'll ask my colleagues if they have any questions before I open it up for any public comment. And if you can just raise your virtual hand, I'll try and look at the screen to see if I see any hands going up, but I don't see anybody waving furiously at me. And oh, I do have one hand going up. Yes, Carmen. You're muted.
Andy, you mentioned that you coordinate with our city staff. So which departments is this management or?
So it's
department?
I coordinate with management. I have a list of ledge contacts. A few of the contacts for smaller cities are the city managers. I can tell you for the
Milpitas?
city of Milpitas, it's Ashwini, and Ashwini then would coordinate who the discussion with. And also know that regarding when it comes to housing now, we also have our planning collaborative. So they also gave me a list of what they wanted us to watch.
Yeah, I was, since we're dealing a lot of bills with housing, so I really would like our planning department to be involved somehow. So, okay,
Sure.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions regarding the legislative guideline, principal housing priorities, legislative calendar, and the bill tracker? Seeing none, then I'll go ahead and look to the members of the public. If anybody has any questions or comments that they'd like to make regarding item 2, which is what I just mentioned. And I'm not seeing any hands up, and there's nobody on a telephone, so I don't have to give that special instruction of if you're on a phone, you hit *9, but I guess I just did. So, all right, took care of that. All right, so we'll go back and we'll go on to item 3, which is the consideration of legislative recommendations to the board of directors. As I said in the opening, that we had to list everything just in case anybody wanted to bring up anything, and make sure it was listed in the agenda so that we weren't in violation of any Brown Act policy. I will say that it is my opinion, and I'll ask my colleagues if what they think, that we as a body should really, I think, focus our things on that the league will not take up, which like local actions or local policies. And I'll use the example, and I might be opening up this can, but the BTA bill that is being talked about, which is 1091, I believe. So I think that would be the best use of our time as far as being able to not so much multitask, but be a force for good. So if anybody has any comments, please feel free. Raise your hand. Oh, yes, Chappie.
Just a process question. So say we identify a bill that we want to make a decision on or track. So can you just walk me through the process of how that would work? And the reason why I'm asking that question is in the past, we've been in situations where somebody will bring up a bill and literally will discuss and vote on it, that very day. And there really wasn't a process or an opportunity to either go back to your city or, even do additional research on that particular item. So I just want to just kind of get a feel for the process or your vision of the process.
Well, in a situation where you're asking, like in an emergency situation where it'd be an emergency because there wouldn't be enough time, would we as a body make that decision? Is that what you're asking?
We've had that scenario even when it wasn't an emergency.
Yeah. Well, I would consider it emergency if there was, and maybe emergency is the wrong term, but in case we don't have enough time because they're moving quickly on something, and if we have and I would imagine it would be only in a situation where we would be against it because we would be for it, and if it was moving forward, we would just kind of like let the process go. So I would just say that if it's something that we feel strongly enough that needs to be addressed, if it can be brought up at the meeting, I don't know, Andy, should we have something agendized for? Because if we can't, if it's not agendized, we really can't talk about it. And if it's time specific or time sensitive, I mean, we may not be able to wait to the next month to discuss it. So can we have something on the agenda where it would be like an open-ended thing that we could add? Is that possible?
I'm not clear on open-ended agenda.
Well, maybe that's the wrong terminology.
We can't add a bill if it's not listed.
Right.
we could have an emergency meeting where the agenda, if something comes up, you can have an emergency meeting and you can have that meeting in 24 hours. So, I mean, that is possible, but then in that kind of situation, I think what Vice Mayor Jones is asking for is time so that his staff, so that make sure that they can review the legislation. Is that correct, Vice Mayor Jones?
Well, yes, so our staff can review the legislation, but also to make sure that we're in alignment with our cities.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen situations where we voted on bills that, you know, the people that voted on them weren't actually in alignment with where their cities were.
Yeah.
And that's why you get, oftentimes you get a lot of people abstaining from the vote because they're not comfortable making that decision. So I just wanted to see a process in place that we can address that.
So I think that this comes in to be a funny situation where you have a very lean staff with the Cities Association, and then some cities having staff that help with legislation and others that don't. We've been in the past, I've been trying to coordinate with staff. But I think that, you know, our cities all have different processes as well. So, you know, I think that the will of this group is where we could go with it.
I think what we're trying to tell you, Chappie, is that, you know, it would probably have to take it as a case-by-case basis. I don't know if we can really specifically say what we would do right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Gustav had his hand.
Yeah, Gustav?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I would certainly find it helpful if, like, on the agenda, we could identify a handful of bills that we are likely to discuss. And perhaps if committee members could either let Rich know or let Andy know in advance, maybe that's a way to list it there so that I know to talk to my staff to get a little more information and be prepared to talk about that bill in particular. Just like on tonight's agenda, there's a long list of possible bills, and then it says possible discussion, and it calls out 2 specific ones. And so I know to focus on those. So any way that we could provide some focus in advance would be really appreciated.
Right, and again, to reiterate, the reason why they're all listed is in case any one of us had a specific bill they wanted to bring forward, but that's definitely the focus. But again, because we want to make sure that we are within the Brown Act, that's why they're all listed. But your point's well taken, and that's something that we'll work towards.
Yeah.
Okay, Nisa?
Thanks, Chair. And just to refresh, I know we have a lot of new people on the committee this year, but last year this issue came up as well, where some members, because their city council had not taken a position on a bill, they didn't feel comfortable voting on the bill. Others did, and some would take a position if they felt it aligned with other positions their city council had taken in the past, even if it wasn't on the exact same bill. So those are 3 different scenarios we had last year. I almost said yesterday. Last year, when we were voting on the different bills. I think going forward, and I'm glad Vice Mayor Jones raised this, one option could be, and we do have our agendas. I mean, we have this meeting once per month, and most city councils meet once per month. So to the extent we know what we'll be discussing at our LAC meetings, maybe what we can do as council members is to get it on our council meeting agenda so that we can vet that with our council members and then get direction from them on how we should vote on that particular bill. Having said that, there are things that I know from last year that we may not be able to give that advance notice to the city council in time for the LAC meeting. So I think there are going to be, just what you said, Chair, some that are more urgent that we won't have that lead time to get it to our city councils, that we're just going to have to vote on, take a position. Some may feel more comfortable abstaining. But I think that could be possibly one of the approaches where, to the extent we can have that lead time to get it on our individual city council agendas, I think that would help.
And that's an example of the bar that was set way too high, but that's good to know that. I appreciate that. And I will be more formal now. So the next person to speak I had to put my glasses on now. Ming? Oh, no, that's Auden. You're not next to speak. Okay, Member Montano.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chair. So it's funny how we're talking about this. I had just asked our staff or our city manager that they need to start looking at the agenda and going over management, whoever, how the different departments, because they need to start being informed. And that's why I had asked, well, is Andy reaching out to these other, who is she reaching out to? But they need to be taking a proactive approach and giving us, our city council members, the recommendation, because they're the experts. They know, what's going to impact our cities. And so I'm glad that this is going to be happening in a more frequent time. So anyway, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, Member Gibbons.
So I'll offer a little bit of a monkey wrench. When I was on the Cities Association and Legislative 6 years ago, the position of the representative on legislative as being an appointment of the mayor was given latitude. Each city, someone said, each city has their own policies, and each representative on the legislative committee at that time was given authority by their appointment to a legislative to make their best decision. Obviously with input from staff when needed, but not to get hung up having to go back to council on every decision. So I just offer that as a perspective of what your individual city might be comfortable with.
Okay, thank you for that. Member DuBose.
Yeah, so is it appropriate to jump in and start to talk about these bills at this point?
We do have a guest that's coming in, and they're due to sign on in a couple of minutes. So again, this was to give us an overview. If there's something you want to, we can talk about after perhaps the assembly member speaks.
Sure. I mean, just real quick, I would just share that Palo Alto has actually sent letters opposing SB 9 and 10, and I think Cal City's opposed 9 as well, SB 9.
Yeah, Morgan Hill did the same thing for SB 9 as well. Did any other cities do the same?
Yes, City of Saratoga. We also sent an opposing letter.
Right.
We did oppose unless amended.
Right. So.
The city of Montecito opposed both 9 and 10. And we also supported local control.
Yeah, we did the same.
Control.
And I agree with you. I think you brought up the VTA governance bill. That may be one that we should discuss. And, I think Palo Alto would be supportive of that one.
Understand. Okay. All right. Any other comments regarding this item? Tom, you still have your hand up. Do you have anything else? They don't give me the power to lower people's hands. They don't want me to be a host because they don't want me to mute and unmute people.
It's down.
So you're all going to have to lower your own hands. All right, everyone. So as I mentioned, we are going to have a guest this evening, Robert Rivas, Assembly Member from the District 30, which is the lower half of Santa Clara County and San Benito County, will be joining us shortly. Andy, do you have anything else you wanted to add? You're muted. Oh, look at that. Somebody made me a host. I have power now.
Does the public speak to this item?
You know what? That's a good point. Let me ask if there's any members of the public wishing to address us on any of the items that we just spoke about. I do not see any hands going up. So I will go ahead and close public comment. And then Andy, you wanted to say something? Still muted.
So sorry, so many, it's too many windows open. I'm checking here to see if Assembly Member Rivas is here. I see that a member of his staff is logged in, and I'm thinking that hi, is this Amy or is this the Assembly Member Rivas?
They're still muted. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Nope, they're still muted again.
Oh, I'm wondering if there's more than one of us trying to unmute them.
I'm not touching it.
Okay, there we go.
I'm here now. This is Amy McElroy with Assemblymember Rivas's office. He should be joining us shortly. I'll go check.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Annie, is there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, and I just think that everybody had good comments, and I agree with, I think that Liz Gibbons and Nisa both made good comments about people voting on issues that, you know, they are able to do that because they are appointed, just like they would take a vote at any other meeting. So.
Excellent. All right, well, while we're waiting for the assembly member, did anyone want to, other than the bills that were already spoken about, is there any other bills that anyone wants to? Does anybody want to talk about?
Or add to our list.
Or add, yeah, or add to the list?
That would be helpful to know.
Yes, Member Gibbons, and then Watanabe.
Are we okay to talk about bills right now?
Yes, if there's anything you want to discuss while we're waiting for the assembly member.
Okay, SB 612, just to let everyone know, I think this would be a great one for the group and individual cities that are part of a CCA, which I think is virtually all of us now, whether it's Silicon Valley Clean Energy or San Jose Clean Energy or Peninsula Clean Energy. It is the bill, the wonderful PCIA, that's the power indifference charge that we all pay to PG&E. And it's a black box and it's ridiculously high, and they increased it 33% March 1st, which is why our rates went up, among other things. And the CPUC has had an opportunity for more than a year to provide a ruling on it, and they have not. So the CCA, Cal CCAs have gotten together and found a sponsor for some legislation related to the PCIA and opening up the black box. So it is quite a significant piece of legislation that would benefit all of our residents and businesses. So I would encourage supporting that one.
Great, thank you very much. Member Watanabe.
Thank you very much, Chair Considine. I'm glad you brought this back again. I have a question regarding SB 9 and 10. I quickly fired off an email to our staff. We do work with a lobbyist regarding bills that are being discussed and taking positions. But I wanted to know, does anybody know if there is a deadline to submit our support or lack of support for SB 9 and 10?
I believe if you want to get it in the record for 10, it was this week, like tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And anybody know about 9?
I know that we wrote the letter. I don't know if there's a deadline, however.
Okay, okay, great.
Member
Well,
Gibbons? You're muted.
The new phrase of the world. Does anybody know why there's the number 10? We were talking about that at our legislative subcommittee, and we didn't know why the break point was 10. Does anybody know where that came from?
Not seeing anyone jumping up. And
I'm not sure what
you're
you're talking about, 10.
Oh, sorry, in SB
10.
SB 10, it says would allow small projects of 10 or fewer. I just wanted to ask, thanks.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has an answer for that one. All right, anyone else?
Andy, this is Amy. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure you saw my message in the chat.
Yeah, she responded saying that he could use yours.
I don't have a Zoom link either. I registered through your website.
Okay, and Andy, you're still muted.
You can use that and we can move them over, but I just emailed you again. Sorry, everyone. Best laid plans.
It's okay. And while we're waiting again, I just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to weigh in on any of the bills that are before us, or any comments that they want to make on the process that we've outlined. Concerns, comments. All right, everyone liking it so far. Oh, Member Turner.
Yes, I wanted to ask if the Housing Accountability Unit is going to be part of our discussion, which is part of Governor Newsom's budget.
If it's Andy, if it's not a bill, or is that something that we would have to agendize?
Yes.
Yes, so we'd have to agendize it.
Okay, can we agendize it?
Let me see if
And,
this.
and do you want me to give you a summary of what it is?
Why don't we, when we go to committee member legislative tracking discussion, which is item number 5, you can bring it up then.
Okay.
Okay.
Put my hand back up.
Amy,
Yes.
did you
Yes, Liz.
Sorry, finish. Andy. So my comment is, as you read through some of these bills, there's the classic overlap of some of the language and so forth. One of the things I'd like to mention as you read through them is that there's a lot of things like you can build housing with commercial if X, Y, and Z, and you can build housing with something else with X, Y, and Z. And my comment is, although there may be value for the remainder of 2021 and to 2022, all of us are doing new housing elements that have to be ready by January of 23. And we also all have approved housing elements right now.
Mm-hmm.
I question whether it's appropriate, and I'm phrasing this thoughtfully, is it appropriate for the state legislature to override approved housing elements? I mean, the whole idea in your housing element is to meet your RENA numbers and to meet your production numbers. Particularly going forward, when we have newer, higher RENA numbers that we're all obliged in our housing element to plan for. Why do these rules why are these rules needed? What's the underlying purpose? Who does this rule benefit? It doesn't necessarily benefit cities. So I just, as you read through some of these, I would offer that as you know, when your brain reads it, when it talks about zoning change, when it talks about general plans, when it talks about has the by right to build housing in X, Y, and Z. It's happened on quite a few of them that I've read through so far. So I would just offer that as a significant issue.
Okay, great, thank you. Member Flygore.
Thanks, Chair. I was going to go back to the VTA AB 1091 bill, but I saw that Mayor DuBois had raised his hand once Mayor Gibbons started talking. So if he wants to continue the discussion on the housing bills, I'm fine holding the VTA bill and coming back to that.
Just thank you. Just a quick comment on SB 10. You know, the other part of that is that it overturns voter initiatives. And again, getting to the local control priority. That was the issue for our council in opposing it.
All right, great, thank you.
Our guest is here.
All right. Well, Assembly Member Rivas, welcome.
Mayor Constantine, how are you?
I'm good, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yep, absolutely. Sorry, I was usually when I hop on to my calendar and the Zoom links are all there, I didn't see a Zoom link there, so I had to do it. I just went on and registered, but yeah, it's good.
It's happened to all of us. I think more than we like to mention multiple times. Like I just had one where my computer actually wouldn't open, so I had to go on my iPad first. So I completely understand. We're very happy that you're here, and we'll give you the floor.
Fantastic.
Everyone, I don't think I have to introduce, but I will. This is Assembly Member Robert Rivas, who again represents the southern portion of Santa Clara County and San Benito. And again, welcome, Assembly Member.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it. Appreciate the invitation. I was told a couple of days ago that I had been invited, so I appreciate the invitation. So many of you may not know who I am. I'm still relatively new to the legislature, just started my second term in the state assembly. As Mayor Constantine mentioned, I represent the 30th Assembly District, which includes parts of 4 counties, the county of Monterey, which is really the seat of this district, the Salinas Valley, represent parts of the coast and Big Sur, and county of Santa Cruz and Watsonville, all of San Benito County, and in Santa Clara County, it's the South Valley, the cities of Morgan Hill and Gilroy. As I start my second term in the legislature, I have been appointed to chair the Committee on Agriculture in the Assembly, and I was also elected by my colleagues to be the vice chair of the California Latino Legislative Caucus. And I know that the majority of this time, even though I logged on late, is supposed to be a Q&A, but I just wanted to touch really quickly on some of the priorities that we have at this point, this session. And probably the one that most of you may know about really is a rerun of a priority bill that we had last year that was surprisingly vetoed by the governor, and that was related to a retrofit project at the Anderson Dam. Obviously, it's a huge priority, not only for the district I represent and the Morgan Hill region, but really our entire region, as studies have been done showing that the potential impacts and the disasters that could occur should there be a major earthquake. And so it's been deemed a huge safety risk by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And so we have reintroduced the bill. It's slightly modified, but certainly it's, as I mentioned, a high priority for the region. This is a dam that was built over 70 years ago. It was built prior to engineers knowing about 2 nearby fault lines and one running directly underneath the dam. And so certainly this bill, as I mentioned, is very similar to last year, but would ensure a timely and safe expert some construction of this dam that needs to take place, would allow the Valley Water District to select the best value contractor rather than the lowest bidder. And so certainly this is also something that not only is a public safety priority for the region, but also would go a long way to create jobs and create that economic development locally. Some other priorities that we have, obviously as chair of agriculture, we've been very heavy on agriculture. I'm also an environmentalist. And so really focusing on ways that we could support this important industry. It's a $50 billion industry here in California. And agriculture is incredibly diverse throughout the state. I am a lifelong resident of San Benito County, of this region. I grew up in obviously in agriculture. I come from a family of farm workers. And so I know in our region, we're really this salad bowl of the world where we grow a lot of leafy greens. But throughout our state, we have, almonds, we've got, anything and everything. We're the #1 ag producing state in the country. And so when I was appointed chair in the fall, I embarked on a statewide agricultural tour, spent time up and down the state, spent time in the county of Santa Clara. I visited some urban ag operations. I visited anything and everything related to agriculture. And so we have a subsequent report that will be published soon on the interactions we had. A lot of the engagement we had. And so our legislative, our package this year is heavy on regenerative agricultural issues, creating a natural working lands climate goal for our state. We also have some legislation related to education. We actually are partnering with the Santa Clara County schools the superintendent of schools. It's Assembly Bill 568 related to early learning and early learning and care, some programs related to racial equity. And then again, just really heavy on climate change issues as it is a priority of mine and certainly for our region. But with that, Mayor Constantine would be happy to open it up to some Q&A and have that level of engagement would be great.
I was muted. Okay, thank you, Assembly Member. I will look to my colleagues. If you'd like to ask the Assembly Member a question, please go ahead and raise your hand. And while I'm waiting to see hands going up, I will ask a question to the Assembly Member regarding SB 7 or AB 71. I'm sorry. Is there any and what I believe your original bill was, is it 3005? Is that what it was?
Geez, I don't even remember anymore, but I think so. I think it was 3005. Yeah.
Do we know or have any indication, because I had to be talked down from the ledge when I wanted to go nuclear when Governor just out of the blue vetoed it. Is there any indication as to why that he may have vetoed it, so that we can maybe address that, or maybe it has been addressed in your next?
Yeah, never. You know, aside from just the brief conversations I had with his administration, because I was, very surprised as well that it was vetoed, because this was a bill that, there was a high level of engagement with his administration prior to even, us introducing the bill. And so it really caught everybody by surprise. And so certainly the feedback we got wasn't very constructive, but certainly, I know that, bill sponsors Valley Water, our staff have engaged the governor's staff once again, as they made a commitment that they would work with us to, ensure that we had something that was workable. But certainly, the feedback we did receive on why it was vetoed was not very constructive, and still, I can't point to some concrete reasons on why it was vetoed. So,
well, thank you for that, Member Blankley.
Hello. Yeah, I just want the group to know that Gilroy is absolutely in support of the, value, be able to not have to go with the lowest bidder for that dam. So I just want everyone to know that. I don't have any more answers either as to why, of course, but we certainly are in support of moving forward with that in any way that we can help.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Any other questions for the Assembly Member? Come on, we can't let them off that easy. Member Gibbons.
Curious, sometimes happen when they don't have project labor agreements or prevailing wage. Was there anything related to that approach or influenced the governor's veto?
Not that I'm aware. No. I think that from what I do know, there was some concerns possibly that came from the California Air Resources Board. Yeah, I had the same reaction.
All right. Okay, and Member Montano.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Assembly Member Rivas. So I too am surprised that the governor vetoed that. That was, it doesn't seem like it was a proactive decision, but he is the governor. So my question to you is, with the water the forecast of the water shortage, and I know you're pro-agriculture, so I have a concern of the irrigation districts and the cities. It's like we're competing against each other for that valuable resource of water. And, it seems like the cities are the ones that are carrying the burden of having to pay, every so often they raise our rates because of the water shortages. And so, but at the same time, I go to the Valley because I have relatives throughout the whole state, because we've been here since the 1930s. So what I see in the Valley is I'm always seeing new trees. Trees are popping up and in agriculture, and they're the ones that use the most water. So I just can't see the logic here. Why are the cities the ones that are paying, taking the brunt and having to pay that cost when the irrigation districts are planting more and more trees, using up more water, and digging up more wells to, and which is causing land subsidence. So how are you going to fix that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Right. Addressing it certainly is incredibly challenging. You know, it's not easy, and that's one of the reasons why I embarked on a statewide agricultural tour, was just to learn the issues. And what I learned is, I can tell you, water issues obviously are very controversial, very challenging, because of water agreements that are still in the works, have been in place for a very long time, especially in the Central Valley. You have there in the Central Valley, the San Joaquin portion, as opposed to the Kern Valley and the Kern County region. They are at odds on water allocations and water rights, and so it's a big concern. But more to your point, as far as the infrastructure that's necessary, I mean, it really is a shame that we have hundreds of thousands of residents that don't have access to clean water in this state. And so we could talk about water quality, we could talk about water allocations, we could talk about the landmark legislation that was passed, I believe, in 2014-15 under Jerry Brown, related to Sigma. So you're seeing a whole bunch of agricultural land that's going to be fallowed. We have a bill this year to address that, basically trying to utilize land that is intended or that will have to be fallowed, using that as a way to store carbon, to become carbon sinks, and really incentivizing that. And so that's more about the natural working lands, how we treat our lands, to maximize the potential, the benefit we can get in storing carbon, or eco restoration and a lot of our wetlands that needs to occur. But when it comes to water issues, I mean, this is a problem that's not going to go away. On our ag tour, I spent time with a professor at UC Davis, and he basically said the best thing the state can do is basically tell our agricultural farmers, pick the winners and losers, and tell them which ones are going to have to move their lands out of production, because there's just not going to be enough water. It's a very difficult conversation to have. He was being very general, or not general, but very direct. But getting this legislature or a governor to tell farmers that they're no longer can farm on their land, it's a very difficult conversation to have. But that's the situation. We're the golden state, and the gold in our state is water. So
and that's why it's the cities versus irrigation districts. So I don't know how you guys can handle that, but I get your point. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Montano. Okay, Member Watanabe.
Thank you, Rich. So thank you, Assembly Member, for your presentation. Question, I mean, we all know how important this dam is, and the importance of the retrofitting and the damage that could have been caused if anything ever happened, that the dam broke. Is there anything that we can do as cities to support your efforts and get the governor to step up and do the right thing here?
Sure. Well, your advocacy is incredibly important, and it was very, as I mentioned, as Mayor Constantine mentioned, it was very frustrating when the governor vetoed it, because we had the support from, the entire region. Zoe Lofgren was a champion on this effort. She continues to be. She was very upset at the veto as well. And so we have a great coalition of local legislators, of some members of Congress in our region, but to have your support at the local level is incredibly important. And so if we could get, a letter of support, I'm sure, we could get all the information you need.
Thank you very much.
All right. I don't see any other hands going up. Assemblymember Rivas, I just want to again thank you for coming this evening, and I also want to thank you for all the work that you've done, especially in that bill for farm worker housing that passed. That was something that is very important, and I really appreciate that you're focused on the people that need the help the most. So again, really appreciate all the fine work that you're doing up there on our behalf in Sacramento.
Well, I appreciate the comments again. Appreciate the opportunity. I know we didn't have much time, but we didn't even talk about, the response from our state related to this pandemic. I've been really working heavy on the issue, and have been as vice chair of the Latino caucus, obviously fighting for, equity in the state's response, and then obviously as it pertains to the distribution and administration of vaccines. And I know that it has been incredibly frustrating for everybody, but really appreciate everyone's efforts. And any questions you have for us in our office, we get constant updates from the administration. Be happy to share with you guys all of that information. But I really appreciate all your efforts. I know this has been a very challenging year for everybody, but the leadership you guys have demonstrated in the county of Santa Clara has really made a huge difference. And hopefully, we see some light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll get back to some kind of normality here soon.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Assembly Member. And
Thank you,
we'd
guys.
love to have you back.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
again.
Just want to make sure that everybody sees in the chat that Assemblymember Rivas's staff has given an email address for anyone who wants to send letters of support for AB 271 and Anderson Dam. Email Amy, amy.elroy@asm.ca.gov. And the first hearing is in 2 weeks from today, so letters are due very soon.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And with that, we're going to move on to item number 5, which is the committee member legislative tracking and discussion requests for future meetings. And I believe, Member Turner, you had something that you wanted to bring up. And you're muted, Member Turner.
Yes. I wanted to bring up the Housing Accountability Unit. And this is not a bill. This is part of Governor Newsom's budget. His total budget for housing production is $1.75 billion, $500 million for low income. And then there's a $4.3 million to create a team of 12 people. And it is to facilitate affordable housing. And basically what he wants to do is he wants to enforce density bonus and the Housing Accountability Act. So the budget will contain members of his staff to attend basically supervisors meetings as well as city council meetings. So let me read to you what he said. He said, "Let me make this clear to all my friends. This is to monitor city council meetings. This is to monitor board of supervisor meetings, planning and commission meetings. We're not going to wait for an article to be written to be proactive in terms of holding local government accountable to increasing housing production." So I attended the assembly meeting that happened yesterday from 1:30 to 6 o'clock. And they talked about the Housing Accountability Unit. So I think we should be aware of this, because this is going to be important to all of us when we have somebody from Governor Newsom's team attending our council meetings.
Okay, thank you very much, Member Turner. Okay, I don't see any of the hands going up, so I'm going to go ahead and ask if there's any members of the public wishing to address us on any items that were discussed or future. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close. And we are going to go ahead and adjourn 1 minute before 7. So you guys get a minute break. Thank you, everybody.
Nice job, Rich. 1 minute.
Is this the same? This is the same link for the next meeting, right?
Yes, yes. We're all going to stay right here. I should have said that. Yeah, we're going to stay right here.
So I had a question. Regarding Rowena Turner's comments, is that going to be on the next agenda?
That was to be brought up at future meetings. So yes.
Okay, yeah, because it seems like they're trying to take our local control away again.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And I have a similar question. Are we going to have that same list of bills on every meeting agenda so we can talk about them each week, each month?
We could definitely do that. I do know that we would want to focus, maybe have a more focus as things go by. But as you know, for the next meeting, we'll definitely do that, because we didn't really have a chance to really dive in to these things. So we'll do that for the next meeting. But the future is to have a more focused agenda. So But yes, we'll definitely do that for the next couple of meetings, Liz.
So Liz, as in the past, I've always attached a list just in case. But yeah, we'll try to have it more focused.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the process of Brown Act and everything. So thanks.
Okay. Are you guys, can we just jump in? It looks like we're still recording. Do you need to turn it off and re-record?
Auden?
No, we can go ahead and continue.
Yep.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I know many of you just jumped off or just switched gears from the Legislative Action Committee. Thank you, Mayor Constantine. We are going to begin the Cities Association Board of Directors meeting. And Auden, if you wouldn't mind doing roll call.
Yes. Bybee.
Present.
Bybee present. Chow. Chow. Chow absent.
Present.
Okay. Chow present. Blankley. Blankley. Blankley absent. Flagger.
Here.
Flagger present. Mock.
Present.
Mock present. Sayok.
Present.
Sayok present. Montano.
Here.
Montano present. Turner. Turner. Turner absent. Constantine.
Present.
Constantine present. Abacoga.
Here.
Abacoga present. Dubois.
Here.
Dubois present. Jones.
Present.
Jones present. Watanabe.
Here.
Watanabe present. Zhao.
Here.
Zhao present. Klein.
Present.
Klein present.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And as other members trickle in, we'll make note of that and make sure that Auden has that captured as well. Thank you. Before we begin, we have our consent agenda. We have 4 items on there that we believe can be taken care of in one motion. Would anyone like to pull anything from our consent agenda? Seeing no hands raised, I turn to our attendees. Welcome to tonight's meeting. Would anyone in the attendees list like to pull? Just raise your hand. Seeing none, can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Fine.
Okay, Auden, do you mind calling the?
Auden, are you muted? Auden?
Hello, sorry. And that was moved by Jones and seconded by Klein.
No, it was moved by Constantine.
Constantine.
Moved by Constantine. Okay. Okay. Bybee.
Aye.
Bybee, aye. Chow.
Aye.
Chow, aye. Blankley is absent.
Well, I'm actually
Oh.
here. I don't,
Blankley is present now.
yeah, sorry.
Okay. Blankley,
Aye.
aye. Flagger,
Yes.
Flagger, aye. Mock,
Aye.
Mock, aye. Sayok,
Yes.
Sayok, aye. Montano,
Aye.
Montano, aye. Turner, Turner is absent. Constantine,
Aye.
Constantine, aye. Abacoga,
Aye.
Abacoga, aye. Dubois,
Aye.
Dubois, aye. Jones,
Aye.
Jones, aye. Watanabe,
Aye.
Watanabe, aye. Zhao,
Aye.
Zhao, aye. And Klein.
Aye.
And
Klein,
Turner is aye.
Turner is
Turner
here
is
too.
present. Okay. And so motion passes with 15 ayes.
Thank you, everyone. And as one of the items in there was our committee assignments. And so thank you all for volunteering to serve on a subcommittee or two. Your committee chair will be reaching out to you. And as we have done in past, we use those as the opportunities to go deep into the issues that you're on. And we'll be folding those issues into our agenda for the upcoming year with various policy recommendations that your group will be bringing forward to the entire board. So thank you. Tonight, we have several presentations that we're excited to bring to all of you. The very first one is a welcome to the Housing Trust's new CEO, Noni Ramos. And with that, I would like to yes, she is here. So Ms. Ramos, thank you and welcome to Cities Association, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate that. And I believe I'm able to share a screen. I'm going to try to do that if you all will bear with me for a minute here. Let's see. Have to choose the right monitor. Let's see, here we are. Hopefully you're all seeing a presentation.
Yes, we can see that. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. And let me just get some notes up and I will be ready. Thank you for your patience. So good evening. Once again, I am Noni Ramos and I am the new CEO of Housing Trust Silicon Valley, and appreciate you allowing me to come and speak to you about Housing Trust and a bit about my background. We are a nonprofit lender, a community development financial institution, and a housing advocate for those of you that are not familiar with us. As a CDFI, we are a mission-driven lender, and we invest in enabling communities to access capital. And we focus on having that capital really be about housing and housing affordability for our community members. So that is an important component for us. I joined Housing Trust in January of this year. I bring 25 plus years of experience both in the CDFI sector and the housing finance area. I've previously held positions in lending and programmatic at both regional and national CDFIs. Although I am a Bay Area native and have spent my entire career working here in the Bay Area, I have worked nationally in many instances. My background includes capital raising, structuring numerous public-private capital partnerships, and developing financing products to meet the needs of affordable housing developers, just as a bit about my background. As a certified CDFI, Housing Trust is leading the effort to create a strong affordable housing market in the greater Bay Area. We work across 13 counties and we're created in Santa Clara County. So it's our roots and it's where we do a significant amount of the work. We believe in safe, stable, affordable housing, and we believe that that can open the door to better lives for our residents. Through our innovative programs and deep partnerships, we rally people and resources to create affordable homes and opportunities for our neighbors. And those range from individuals who are experiencing homelessness to renters and also first-time home buyers. Our financial expertise and extensive private and public sector partnerships ensure we make the most of every dollar so local residents can secure stable and affordable housing that works for them and their families. We have a track record of working with private sector through our tech fund and more recently through collaborations with both Google and Apple. I'm gonna just show a few slides of some of our work in Santa Clara County specifically. Over the last several years, we have had the ability to revolve approximately $22 million of supportive housing fund dollars, and we've been able to revolve those twice, and those are funds coming from Measure A through the county. That's allowed us to leverage approximately an additional $90 million in private capital, which supports the county-wide objectives to end homelessness. So something we're very, very proud of. And you can see in this slide, many of the partners that we work with, funders as well as service providers. We also have an initiative where we provide grant funds so that residents that are transitioning from homelessness and housing instability can actually have their down payments, right, and deposits to be able to rent a unit in affordable housing. Since 2015, a significant portion of our financing has supported the development of units to house extremely low income, very low income, and low income residents through 47 loans across Santa Clara County, as you can see here, for a total financing of approximately $178 million. And then across some of the other counties, another $86 million that we've been able to finance. Cumulatively, as an organization, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary in 2020. We won't forget that one. And we have been able to invest $355 million across the region to finance approximately 21,000 homes, serving 38,000 plus residents in our greater San Francisco Bay Area. And I, again, thank you for the opportunity to come to speak to you. I'd be happy to respond to any questions if you have those, or anything else that I can share either about myself or about our organization.
Thank you. And so colleagues, I open it up to questions. Okay, I don't see any. But Ms. Ramos, it was a pleasure to meet you. I know several of us look forward to continuing the conversation. Mayor Klein of Sunnyvale leads our housing committee. And as that committee and its members look at some work that we could do on a regional basis on a county level, we'd love to be able to see how we can partner together in some of your efforts and some of our priorities. So.
Thank you. And if we can ever be a resource to any of you, please do reach out to us. Andy knows how to get hold of us. So please let us know how we can be of support to your efforts.
Actually, and Ms. Ramos, I see a question.
Sure.
So yes, Councilmember Mock.
Thank you for coming. The first question that I have is regarding qualifications for these loans. The second question that I have is with respect to the interest rates on these loans, with regards to whether or not they're fixed or they're variable. And let's go through the first question.
Sure, of course. Sure. So we have, we lend in different areas. So for example, some of our lending is to multifamily affordable housing developers. So those are developers, both nonprofit organizations, many that you're probably familiar with, as well as mission-aligned organizations that develop and preserve affordable housing. So that's multifamily rental housing. And for those transactions, we provide loans for acquisition so that those developers can purchase property to either build new housing or to preserve housing that already exists, right? So it's a strategy for anti-displacement for residents that are already living in the homes. So in terms of the affordability of those units, they vary, right? They can vary up to potentially 80% area median income. But as you saw with one of the slides that I showed, we actually are financing units that are serving 30% area median income and 50 and 60% area median income. So it's quite, the range is quite broad in terms of the different households that the financing that we provide is supporting that what our developers are doing. And then on the first-time home buyer, because we do have a first-time home buyer initiative that we work with Santa Clara County on, those homeowners are capped in terms of how much of a purchase price they can actually use the funds for. So it's a down assistance. The Empower program is a down payment assistance program, and the purchase price for a home is capped at $800,000. So it's not there's some income qualifications, but it's more about the purchase price that they're able to obtain the financing for.
So if I were a developer, excuse me,
yeah, go ahead.
How much money do I have to put down for, let's say, a project? Let's say it's a $20 million project. How much money do I need to put down, and how much can I borrow?
Sure. So we actually make some pretty large loans. I believe that the largest loan that we've made to date is $29 million. We financed about half of that, and then we actually partnered with Google to finance the other half of that, another 50% of that. it's going to vary how much a developer can borrow, right? So one of the things that we look at is we look at the collateral. So we look at the value of the real estate, and we may lend 80% loan to value of that real estate. We may lend up to 95% loan to value on that real estate based on our underwriting and our due diligence.
I find that the bills that are being presented, SB 9 and SB 10, are for market rate housing and not affordable housing, and do not provide for infrastructure funding. So I think that you may have a better situation here.
And then I do want to address your interest rate that you had. So our rate, I would say for our multifamily housing, our interest rates are typically in the 5.25%, 5.5%. We do have some funds that actually come in at much lower. There's some work that we're doing with some of the tech companies where we're able to finance projects at 2% and 3% financing, right? So a lot of it has to do with which capital we have available to actually be able to provide to our development partners.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilmember Montano.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to our guest speaker. And the question I had was Community Reinvestment Act. These are where banks have to put in money back to the community. How does your agency adapt to that, or do you guys even consider that? How do you guys work together?
Yes, thank you. So the way it's very important, CRA is very important, and as I'm sure you probably know, there have been some revisions that have been proposed, right, to CRA that has been a bit concerning. So with the new administration at the federal level, we're hoping that some of that will actually be changed because it was not supportive of financial institutions continuing to invest in communities. So the way that a CDFI and that our CDFI works with financial institutions as it relates to the CRA is that financial institutions get I don't want to say they get audited, they get reviewed by their regulator. And part of what that is taken into consideration is how they're meeting their community responsibility, right? So investing in a CDFI, lending money to a CDFI is an eligible use, and they get credit basically for the work that they do with us. So we collaborate with financial institutions to be able to use their capital. So we borrow it because often financial institutions are not able to make the kind of loans that we can make, right? They can't finance the type of projects. Maybe the loan sizes are too small. So CDFIs are able to fill that gap because we're in that intermediary between the financial institution and the development partner. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so this basically now there's going to be some oversight or some accountability for the Community Investment Act because of the new administration?
Well, so what has happened is in the former administration, there was a proposal to kind of water it down. Yeah, water it down a little bit. And so what instead is what the hope is that there will be a reconsideration of that so that CRA can continue to be a way to incentivize financial institutions to support community development.
That's great. And then the other question I have, how do you adapt to the high cost of housing in the Valley? Because what is affordable is really not, it's all relative. It's really not affordable. So how, you're talking about houses that are $1 million now. And a lot of middle-class families can't even touch,
right.
They can't. So a lot of them are moving out to the Valley or somewhere where it's more affordable. And then again, that impacts our traffic, our circulation. So anyway, but going back to your agency, how do you adapt to that, the high cost of buying a home here?
Sure. So in the multifamily rental space, part of what we're doing is supporting developers so that they can access funds to acquire property, right? So while land is at very high demand and it's very costly, there are ways to, whether it's infill or whether it's ways of working with public sector partners, to be honest with you, right, with the cities and municipalities, of how to identify properties that could be utilized for affordable housing, and that can start to help address some of the cost issues. There's also quite a bit of innovation going on around different ways of building, right? I'm sure you're all familiar with the idea of the modular units or other, manufactured housing, excuse me, those type of approaches. So that's part of what our organization supports as we're looking at financing opportunities with our partners, as they bring us innovation around different kinds of sites, as they look at density, right? And I know that for a lot of municipalities, that's an interesting concept, right, around density and how much density. But to your point, if we're able to protect our current residents, preserve them being in our current communities, and then potentially add some housing units, it does support the issue of folks having to have long commutes and congestion and some of those quality of life issues for us, right? And also a community is really only as strong as its residents. And so we want diversity in our communities. We want to retain that diversity. We don't want to lose diversity in our communities. So it's very important. On the homeowner side, again, that first-time homebuyer program that I mentioned, that's, one of the goals is to be able to provide support around the down payment, because often that is one of the obstacles as families look to purchase, right? So having the ability to have a program like that supports down payment assistance for homeowners is a strategy around preserving folks in our communities versus them having to leave the community, as we've seen.
Yeah, I think that's a big hurdle because you mentioned about preserving, but preservation of the families, but it seems that intergenerational families are not being preserved because they just get priced out of the market. And then you have people that pay cash, and I go, who has that kind of money to pay for $1 million home? So yeah, that's the sad part, that a lot of the intergenerational families have to be forced out of the valley. So move out of state or whatever. But yeah, well, thank you for all your hard work. And
sure, thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. And before I switch subjects, is there anyone in our attendees list that would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we welcome you again, Ms. Ramos, and thank you for joining us.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Andy.
And so for our next discussion, I know many of us have been having side conversations about the increase in hate crimes that we have been seeing against Asian American and Pacific Islander community. And so tonight we've asked 3 of our leaders, our colleagues, to come and share the work that they are doing in this space. And hopefully we can have a conversation of how we could bring our brain trust together so that we can have more concerted efforts in the county to really address the problems that we're seeing. And so our first speaker tonight is Assemblymember Evan Lowe, and welcome for joining us. And we'd love to hear the work that you have been doing in this space and what we could do to assist you.
Thank you very much, Mariko. It's good to see all of you. It goes without saying, thank you very much for your service. But the big wig in the room is our district attorney, because he represents our entire county. So I want to defer to him. But just very briefly, and frankly, an opportunity for me to ask him a question too about what he's seeing on the ground. But thank you for the recognition of that. It's unfortunate that you were seeing time after time the victimization of innocent fellow residents in our communities. And unfortunately, there are many factors that go into play, including, frankly, many of the cultural issues to which we may have language access challenges, or we're just afraid to speak up. And so that's where we ask for each and every one of you, if you haven't already done so, please do consider passing resolutions so that there's an opportunity to have discussions and reflection on these issues. We may be talking about the devastating hate crimes towards the Asian Pacific Islander community at this moment. But we also know that as we recognize Women's History Month, that there's uncanny parallels to the struggles of women, of those that we previously celebrated for Black History Month, to Pride Month, to Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and the list goes on and on. So we passed resolution language. We have staff on this call too, and we can be sure to send it to your staff and your teams as well to ensure that you have resolution language, a sample resolution language. But we also have a rally coming up in San Jose at San Jose City Hall this Saturday at 11 a.m. at San Jose City Hall. Please do come join us and stand in solidarity. We, of course, will be distanced with appropriate masks on as well too. But unfortunately, just this seems to be sort of a recurring effort and theme that we see in our communities. But again, we deeply ask for your allyship in helping to spread the word and to help show that this is not just an issue towards the Asian Pacific Islander community, but for everyone. And so very briefly, we passed legislation and a budget asked specifically to data collection. I know that our district attorney would like to hear about that as well, to help also empower local jurisdictions to actually collect the data so that we can adequately figure out what type of legislation and policies we need to change around that too. So that's very brief, but I welcome to be educated and informed from our very own district attorney as well. So thanks for the time.
Absolutely. And I like how you introduced our colleague for me, but welcome DA Rosen, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me and inviting me. I wish I was coming to speak about a more positive subject, something, maybe some successes that we could feel good about. But unfortunately, I'm here to talk about some very disturbing trends when it comes to hate crimes in our county. So I thought I would just talk for just a couple minutes. Of course, I'm happy to answer questions. I want to say a little bit about what we've seen this year, specifically around hate crimes against Asians, starting with the coronavirus, or as some called it, the China virus, many months ago. Talk a little bit about how in our office we deal with hate crimes and what our commitment is to combating them, and then mention just a few significant cases that have happened, including one that you're going to hear a lot about tomorrow after this person is arraigned. It'll be a very big story. So starting a year ago, after we went into shelter in place, we in the DA's office started to hear about a lot of hate incidents against Asian Americans. And we would hear about this we have prosecutors that work in our community that don't work in the DA's office, but are assigned to work out in different parts of our county. We have a prosecutor that specifically works in the Vietnamese American community, for instance. And we started to hear from different sources about a lot of hate incidences blaming Asian Americans for the coronavirus. And so very quickly in March, we put together a 56-second PSA sort of called "This is not a Chinese virus," and it was played on YouTube. It was played on local television. We have it on our website. I can share it afterwards. It's very simple. It's several prosecutors from my office saying, we have a very diverse office, so it's a rainbow of folks in our office stating very simply that viruses don't have an ethnicity, but if you attack someone because of their ethnicity, then you'll have a lot more to worry about than COVID-19, because we prosecute those cases very aggressively. We have a prosecutor in our office that is assigned to hate crimes, specifically to. Oh, thank you so much for putting the PSA up, Patrick. Thank you. We have a prosecutor that's assigned to hate crimes. It happens our office has a lot of expertise when it comes to prosecuting hate crimes. We wrote the statewide manual that prosecutors all over California use in figuring out how to charge hate crimes and how to prove them. We just had a long-standing interest in this topic, probably because we've always had a very diverse county and we try to be forward-thinking. And a couple of the notable cases against Asian Americans recently, and I'll give you some overall numbers in a moment. Back in April, a Vietnamese couple was shopping in a grocery store and a man came up to them and started screaming obscenities at them and racial slurs and blaming them for the China virus. And he made his hand into the shape of a gun and said, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna do this to you, I'm gonna do that to you. We charged him with a hate crime, and that case will go to trial. He hasn't pled guilty yet. Then more recently in Mountain View, probably some of you heard about this. Margaret probably heard about this. a woman is walking along downtown Mountain View, and I think she actually just shoplifted at a Chinese-owned store a few moments earlier and started saying she's not going to pay, go back to China, these kinds of things. And then she saw an Asian American having lunch, and she said a number of racial obscenities to this man, and then spit on him, and then continued walking along. How this Asian American man initially responded is part of what we should talk about, which is while people around him wanted him to call the police and report it, he did not want to. And that's something we see a lot with hate crimes, that the victims don't want to report the hate crime. And if you stop and think, you can understand why. It's sort of, you feel a sense of shame, or why do I want to bring more attention to myself? I don't want to be a complainer. I don't want to be a victim. But eventually he cooperated, and the Mountain View Police did just a terrific investigation, and we've charged her with a misdemeanor hate crime. The next case I'm going to describe is the most serious case, and one that I'm deeply concerned about and troubled by. The defendant will be arraigned tomorrow. There's an Asian American woman that's waiting at the train station in Diridon Station, and early in the morning in San Jose. Her job is in Palo Alto, and she's just standing there with a backpack on when she's attacked by a man who assaults her and tries to rape her, knocks her down, screaming anti-Asian obscenities at her, and she screams. Some bystanders intervene, and they get this guy away from her. Police are called, and he's found shortly thereafter. But the reason I'm so, we've charged him with assault with intent to commit rape, assault with intent to cause great bodily injury, and a hate crime enhancement attached to each of those. And the hate crime enhancement does a couple things. It's a sentencing enhancement, so it adds 1, 2, or 3 years in addition to the underlying sentence. The requirements to prove the hate crime are that the crime was substantially motivated by the victim's perceived ethnicity, race, gender, sexual orientation. So it's the only crime where we have to prove motive, or we have to prove what the defendant's motive was. But we feel that given what he said and how he acted, we'll be able to prove that. The reason I'm so upset and disturbed about this case is that while I understand the media attention it's going to get is appropriate, because this is a serious crime and this kind of bigotry we have no tolerance for, but I also understand that it's going to further scare and cause concern, specifically in the Asian American community. And I'm very troubled by that. And so that's why we need to figure out together how to, the prosecuting the case is something that I feel very confident that we'll do very well. But in terms of helping people to feel welcome and safe, and of course a part of this community, is more challenging. We have in Santa Clara County a hate crime task force that Supervisor Chavez and others began a few weeks ago. And I have a feeling there's a representative from the League of Cities that's a part of that task force to try to figure out what we can do together to reduce instances of hate crimes. And in terms of numbers, in 2020, we filed more hate crimes than we have in the last 10 years in the DA's office. So now the numbers are small, but the trend is what's troubling. So last year in 2020, we filed 14 hate crimes. The year before, we filed 2. The year before that, 3. And the numbers are similar. They're in the single digits for most of the last 10 years. 14 is the highest number of hate crimes we've ever charged. So while the number is very small, what I understand is that that number increased significantly, which reflects what we're hearing from other organizations that track hate incidences, which is just short of a hate crime. So we have a lot of hate incidences. We've had more hate crimes than we've had this year, and I think that that's concerning. And the last thing I would say about a hate crime is the reason I feel so strongly about it, because I think that a hate crime is really a crime against three. It's a crime against that individual person that was victimized. It's a crime against that individual victim's community, whether it's their ethnicity, their religion, their sexual orientation. It's a crime against that entire community because that community feels the impact of one of their members being targeted for a bigoted reason. And finally, it's a crime against all of us, because all of us as Americans are entitled to equal and fair treatment under the law. And those are really this country is really founded on those ideas. And targeting someone for a crime because they look different or talk different or worship different or love differently goes against those basic principles which make our country so special. So those are the reasons that we take these crimes very, very seriously. And while I would say, on the one hand, the raw numbers of hate crimes are relatively small for a county of 2 million people, on the other hand, the trend is unmistakably gone up. And I think that's what's so concerning. Thank you.
And thank you for the work that you're doing. And I think your concern is shared by many of us here. So we thank both of you for spending time with us tonight. And if I'll open it up for questions from my colleagues. Mayor Klein.
Sure. First, I just want to thank, Assemblymember Lowe for the resolution, the wording, and just calling that rally. I think it's really important. This is a very serious issue that we've seen, rapidly increase over the last year. Question to DA Rosen, and one of the two hate crimes that happened in 2019 happened in my city. And,
Yes.
It was a hate crime. It was a hate crime committed against a Muslim community, which was actually an Indian residents. And it was, a long process of healing and bringing the community together, because exactly that there was, especially in an, attempted murder and, with a car, basically attempted murder with a car, the feeling that residents were not safe. And so definitely trying to, arraign that person is critical. Getting closure and making sure that they're actually prosecuted. And I understand, COVID has kind of kept things, slowed things down. But the other half of arraigning them is moving forward with a case and saying, yes, they are, that there is closure. What's your staffing now? How do you think, of the 14 cases, how quickly they'll go through the system?
Well, I think they will move through the system more slowly than in years past, because the courts, given the restrictions we have with COVID, the courts are operating at, I don't know, maybe 1/3 capacity. So it will take a little bit longer. However, for instance, for the case in Sunnyvale that you mentioned, where the guy tried to kill Muslims in a pedestrian intersection and then hit Indian Americans, he's in custody. So while it's taking longer for that case to resolve in the sense of having to go to trial or having him plead guilty, he's in custody.
Absolutely.
And I know that tomorrow, for the man that tried to rape this woman on the platform of the train station, we will be asking for him to be held without bail. I hope the judge will agree with us. But the cases will take longer. I mean, it may take a year or so for these to work their way through the system. One thing I would just add about hate crimes that's very interesting thing about how sentencing works for hate crimes is it's the only crime where the judge is asked in addition to jail or prison or other kinds of punishments for the conduct, the judge is asked to consider having the person, the defendant, do community service specifically with the victim organization, with an organization that represents the victim. So if you had committed a hate crime against an African American, to do community service with an organization that helps African Americans or an African American run organization. So it's the only crime where there's a very strong attempt as from our society to try to not only punish this person, but educate them, change their thinking so that they don't do something like this again. Because, you know, I know we all share that, like, of course, we're going to appropriately punish the people that commit these hate crimes. But then what we really want is when they get out of jail or prison, that they don't think this way anymore, that they've grown and evolved and are educated. So I think that's something for us to focus on as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I know, Assemblymember, you mentioned that you had a question of DA Rosen.
Thank you very much for letting me crash your party. But I have to have the opportunity. District Attorney Rosen, you know this. Democracy is very messy, and you oftentimes talk about enforcing the law. And we see the pendulum swinging from state laws, either coming from the legislature or that, frankly, of the electorate via proposition. And you just referenced earlier that of rehabilitation. What can we as public representatives, elected officials, city councils do to help focus in getting more support on the rehabilitation front?
So I think that one of the things that I've learned as DA is that while I can prosecute people and send them to jail or prison when that's the last resort to do, almost everybody that we prosecute is released from custody at some point. There's very few people that go to prison for the rest of their lives. So I'm very interested in what happens in jails and prisons to provide opportunities to rehabilitate. I don't think of having programs for inmates to get GEDs or to, you know, learn about why they're so angry. I don't view those as making the prison or jail soft or, you know, too nice of a place. I've been to a lot of prisons, like they're even San Quentin, which has a lot of terrific programs in it. Like, it's not a country club. Like, it's not. So it's still a prison. But I think those opportunities, I think for the legislature, when it thinks about trying to reduce the footprint of the criminal justice system, which I generally agree with, but I think that that you get what you pay for. So if you don't provide any kinds of rehabilitation programs in prison, or very few, don't be surprised that the inmates come out as bad or worse than they were before. So I think I'm very interested in those kinds of programs for inmates. Secondly, of course, I work a lot with crime victims. And so while we have some resources to help crime victims with counseling, with housing assistance, with food assistance, certainly the need is greater than the resources we have. And I think that you know, focusing on helping crime victims heal, which is different than sending inmates to prison. Those are different things. But focusing on resources to help crime victims, I think just is the right thing to do. And there's many defendants that I've met who were previously victims of crimes and nobody cared. So sometimes the difference between a crime victim and a crime defendant is just a moment in time. So I think the better job we do helping crime victims heal, it's not only the right thing to do, it makes it less likely that this person becomes a defendant themselves in the future. So I know the pendulum is moving around a lot with criminal justice reform. And I think that for me as the DA here, I I want to try to do things that work, that have buy-in from a lot of different people. So if I only talked to people who agreed with me, I wouldn't have very many conversations. So it's very helpful to talk to people with different perspectives. And I sometimes feel, I'll just be candid, I'll give you my candid view. I sometimes feel from my Democratic and liberal colleagues that there is a lot of criticism of law enforcement, much of which is legitimate and constructive, but some of which is not. And I think that I don't want to demonize anyone. I want to listen to everyone, and I want to try to encourage police officers and community groups to do the best jobs that they can do. So, I try not to be I don't think you want a DA who's a bomb thrower. I think that's not a good look for a DA. It's better to be more of somebody that calms the waters. That's what I'm trying to do. So thank you for the question, Assemblyman.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Chow?
Hello. Hi. So I'm wondering, thank you so very much for attending. Really helpful to learn about these cases that I didn't even know. So I'm wondering, has the crime rate gone up in 2020 overall during the pandemic?
So the crime rate in 2020 for the first 6 to 8 weeks of shelter in place, so I think March and April of 2020, crime went down significantly during those 2 months because people were really locked in and sheltering in place. There was less economic activity. There was a lot less criminal activity. It went down significantly, most categories of crime. But since then, crime returned to the level that it was at last year in 2019. And some crimes have gone up in 2020 versus 2019. So for instance, a residential burglary in 2020 was down, much lower than it was in 2019. But commercial burglaries were up. Commercial burglary is like burglarizing a store. So think of all the businesses that are closed. There were a lot more burglaries there than there were last year. In addition, car theft was up, as well as aggravated assault was up. So, and when I say up, I'm talking about maybe about 10%. So on the one hand, that's significant and that's important. On the other hand, crime is still at levels that are extremely low given the last 30 or 40 years in our state and in our county. So that's the answer to what happened with crime in 2020.
So then I do wonder, for hate crimes, how about hate crimes against other ethnic groups? You mentioned the Muslim.
Yeah, so the important.
They also gone up or down?
Well, in 2020, we filed 14, and it was a mix. I mean, 4 were African American, were the victims. I think 2 were Latinos, 3 were LGBTQ. There was 1 or 2 against Latinos as well. So it was sort of a mix. I don't know that we in our county have enough data. I don't know how significant the data would be year to year on a specific ethnic group. Except, I mean, I'm just telling you, like in 2021, we've had 3 hate crimes against Asians in the last 6 months. So that's definitely an upward trend. Now, there's 2 ways to look at that, Vice Mayor. One way is in a county that has 2 million people who interact with each other every day. So we're talking about, billions of interactions between people, right? 99.99% of those are normal, fine interactions. So that's sort of the good news. The glass half empty view is, but we have seen more hate instances and hate crimes specifically against Asians. And I don't think it's been helpful that rhetoric about the coronavirus has blamed Chinese people has been helpful. And
Sorry, I'm a little confused. So out of the 14 hate crimes in 2020, how many of those are against Asians or because of they miss?
Of the last 10 of the last, well, the numbers, what I have for 2020 is that 4 were against Asian Americans in 2020 of the 14. I don't know what the breakdown was in 2019 or 2018 between the different ethnic groups. But
and then you mentioned the 3 in the last 6 months. You mean this 4 plus 3 or 4?
Well, two of those are this. 2 of those were this calendar year in 2021. One was back in 2020.
So 2 were in 2021. Okay.
Yes.
So then that means overall, all the hate crime is up, and is specifically to Asian is up. But
yes. Yes.
Really not that much compared with, I think overall hate crime is up.
Yes. Overall, the number of hate crimes are up, and yeah, what I'm giving you the numbers of what's reported and prosecuted, and
yeah,
there's a lot of crimes that are underreported. Sexual assault, domestic violence, these are way underreported. There's all kinds of studies that document this. Hate crimes are also very underreported. Even hate instances are underreported. And the difference between a hate incident and a hate crime is basically the difference between words and actions. So just yelling something at somebody, while that's awful and disgusting, it's a hate incident. If the yelling and so forth then leads to some physical altercation, that becomes the hate crime. That's the best way to understand the difference. And what I would
Sorry for
encourage—
taking you so much of your time. I'm wondering, where can I find a document with all the statistics? Maybe you could.
So if you contact Erin West in the DA's office, ERIN is her first name, West is her last name. She can give you, we have to report every year to the California Attorney General the number of hate crimes that we filed. We have to report how many cases were brought to us to issue as hate crimes, how many did we issue as hate crimes, what were the results of those in court. So we're happy to provide you that information. I don't think that information will tell you the ethnic breakdown. It just won't. We're not asked for that, but it will give you the numbers of how many cases and what the result of those cases were in terms of convictions.
Okay, thank you so much. Last question, just condemning hate crime. I wonder if that would do any good. What do you just address? I wonder if we just condemn hate crimes, that doesn't seem to do any good.
Well,
we don't address the root cause. Would that resolve the hatred? So what do you suggest?
Well, first of all, I agree with you that condemnation alone is not enough, but condemnation is part of the solution because I don't want to normalize this behavior, right? If I imagine that as the DA, instead of filing hate crimes on these cases, I just filed it as a sexual assault or a battery or, or whatever it is, the underlying crime. And I just ignored the racial motivation of it because I said, let's not focus. That doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. That would send a signal to people that it was okay to say these things and to act this way and to be motivated by bigotry. So I think condemnation is necessary to sort of say, hey, these are our values. This is what we believe in, and we're against these things. But I also agree with you that alone is not enough. And so partly that's why, at least in the law, it recognizes something that, we try to do as good citizens, which is to educate people about others that aren't like us, to foster goodwill and good feelings. And somebody asked me, I've been on a lot of different programs talking about hate crimes and, you know, what could you do to make Asian Americans feel more comfortable, or Black Americans or Jewish Americans? And, you know, obviously there's different organizations and nonprofits that do work in this area that are very good. And I'm just not here to give a plug for them, but there's a lot of organizations do very good. But I'll just be really honest with you as well. Like, you know, I live in a neighborhood where there's, you know, people of different races and colors. And I really make an effort to talk to all my neighbors and to wish them, you know, a happy Lunar New Year, if that's what they're celebrating. And if they ask me what I'm doing around Rosh Hashanah or Jewish holidays, you know, I tell them, like, so I feel like part of the solution is to talk with one another. So I agree with you. Condemnation alone is not enough. It's where we start, but it's not where we finish. Thank you.
Councilmember Abikoga.
Thank you, and thank you to both of you for being here and for your leadership on this issue. Assemblymember, thank you for all that you have done in speaking out against this anti-Asian sentiment and organizing the rally. I think part of the problem or the challenges within our API community is that we don't talk about it, we don't report it. You know, we're seen as an invisible ethnic group, and so I think it's important for us to, you know, encourage that we do speak out and share our stories. And I wanted to thank DA Rosen in your office with the incident that happened in Mountain View. My understanding, as you mentioned, was the victim didn't want to report it, but it was through encouragement from your office and our police department that they did come forward and report it and were able to arrest the person. So I appreciate that, that support that you provided. But my question was going to be what constitutes a crime versus an incident, because I actually, just a few weeks ago, I volunteered at the senior center doing the lunch program. And as I was checking this people in, this woman yelled at me and said, you know, I don't want to listen to you. I only want to listen to American English. So based on that versus like what happened, I guess maybe it was a spitting incident that constituted that as a crime. So I appreciate your clarifying that. But the other part I've been thinking more and more about is as bystanders, like what should we be doing if we see an incident like that happening?
I think in the case you mentioned, Margaret, where someone, you know, you're volunteering at the community center is what you're doing. So you're doing this very nice, good-hearted thing, and someone says something really awful to you. I would hope that if I was in line there or my parents were in line there, that they would, you know, say something to that person, like, "Hey, you really shouldn't say that. That's not nice. I mean, what does an American look like? What does an American speak like exactly?" So I would hope someone would say something. The one thing I just wanted to add about this case that just happened that I think really picks up on what you were saying, Margaret. The supervisor of the sexual assault team in the DA's office is a Vietnamese American woman named Nguyen Tran. And I talked to her today about what charges we were going to file against this man and the hate crime and so forth. And she said, you know, I'm very upset, you know, because I wonder if part of why this is happening is that we, Asian Americans, didn't say anything before, didn't speak up for ourselves. And so people either didn't think this happened to us or maybe thought we were an easy target because we're not going to complain or say anything. And she got very upset about that. We also talked the prosecutor that's going to handle this case for the office that one assigned, her name is One Tran, that she assigned to the case is an Asian American female prosecutor in our office. And so I said, and I know who the prosecutor is. Her name's Jinglan Lee. She's terrific. She's going to do a great job. And I think that when people see what a great job she does on this case, I hope that that's a source of great pride for the Asian American community, and also sort of a message to the larger community. Like, I mean, it's not like we have a lot of Asian American prosecutors in our office, so it's not, you know, when you're sort of like who's next up for the case, it's not surprising that it's going to be somebody Asian American. Oh no, it happens. This was a hate crime against an Asian American. So it's not like, you know, we had to find somebody for this. Like we have a lot of Asian American prosecutors. So I hope that her successful prosecution of this case also sends a message to the community about who makes up Santa Clara County. Well, if you're a prosecutor in the DA's office, it's hard to be more establishment than that, right? I mean, pardon the expression, but like, right, I'm the man. Okay, that's what they call the DA. Well, the man is now is women and Asians and African Americans and Latinos and LGBTQ. Like it's a pretty diverse place, and so I think this prosecution will hopefully be not only an accountability exercise, but a teaching moment for our community.
Mayor Shao?
Thank you, Chair. Again, I want to thank Assembly Member Evan Lowe and our District Attorney Jeff Rosen for joining us to talk about this important issue, the hate crime against Asian API. And I also want to thank you, both of you, for doing the great work for our community and for all of us. I just want to ask Assembly Member Lowe, can you repeat the rally, the time and the place, and when should, you know, what time we should be there? And can you give us a little bit more detail about the rally for this Saturday?
Was that a softball question? You're trying to tee things up. It sounds like it, but I'm going to ask Patrick to put the details in the chat too. But it is this Saturday, 11 o'clock in San Jose at San Jose City Hall. But I will submit to you all, when these hate crimes were occurring, I was waiting for some organization to put this together back at home. And weeks were passing. I said, oh, still nothing. And so I just said to the team, I said, let's just create a flyer and just, and I would say this at the rally, a councilwoman by the name of Pam Foley reached out to me. And she said, I'm just heartbroken seeing what's going on. What can I do to help support? And I said, thank you so much. Can you help get us a permit at San Jose City Hall for this rally? She said, sure. And I said, okay, we're going to do it next week. She's like, enough time? I said, let's just do it. Let's just go. And so that's the impetus of how this is. And so I just share that with you is there's no perfect solution. Let's not wait for someone else to come. And by the way, as our district attorney is speaking, I could literally close my eyes and we talk and imagine this for the conversation for anti-Semitism in our community, or the attacks towards the Muslim community, or the Black community, or LGBTQ+, in which there's swastikas painted in San Jose. This is, again, the uncanny parallels. So it's so important that we say, okay, it's going to be the solidarity that is so critical to each and every one of us, which is, again, why I genuinely welcome each and every one of you to bring your family and friends to the rally on Saturday, or do your own part in helping to share the message.
Thank you.
I'll be there. Councilmember Mock?
I just wanted to give both of you, Evan and Jeff, just a huge hand. Thank you very much for the good work that you're doing for our communities. I really do appreciate it. I have been a victim of one of those incidents and of hate crime. I didn't report it. I didn't think it was all that important. But as I find out, most of my friends have been victims as well. So it's very underreported. I think that the numbers are exponentially higher than what has been reported to you.
Yeah.
And I think that it starts out small, but as people are embracing to do whatever they want to do, they can go on to the next thing, which is actually the hate crime. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing to suppress that. I think that for people who are out there in the community, I just want to make one simple comment, and that is the following: that if you are a witness to a hate crime in some fashion, you may just need to step up and say, you know, this is not the right thing to be doing. Stop it. And that would be a simple thing to do. I'm not talking about bringing out a gun or a knife, or I'm just, it's a verbal thing. And I also think that as human beings, that we all should have some deep respect for each other, whether we are LGBTQ or Chinese or Jewish or whatever, Black, whatever it happens to be. America is made great by the synergy that we have. So whenever we get together and we attack a problem, we just really, if we do it together, then we do a great job. And if we don't and we fall apart, then we stand divided and we may not accomplish the chores that we want to accomplish. So again, thank you very much for your effort, your time here tonight. I know that you're off hours, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you, Council Member. Any other questions and or comments? I'm also going to go to our, I'm sorry. Yes, Council Member Watanabe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, District Attorney and Assembly Member for your words. As an elected, I have had to deal with some hate crimes in my community, and one was involved a Muslim family, and the other a Southeast Asian woman just the other day, actually, and where she was walking in the neighborhood at 2:00 in the afternoon and had a chain snatched off of her neck. And if you know the Southeast Asian community, they value their jewelry, and she was an older woman and it was exposed, and it was like low-hanging fruit and snatched by somebody that was following her. And unfortunately, I think we talked, several people have mentioned about people being afraid to report crimes. And unfortunately, she did not want to press charges. And so it's very unfortunate that I think, as much as we try to tell people, that it's okay, that it's very important to report crimes, especially hate crimes. I want to give a shout out just to say that what you're doing on Saturday, Assemblymember Lowe, I think is a wonderful way to get people to see that people do care. And I think it's very important that these opportunities are presented for all communities to understand that there is a lot of caring, there's a lot of support out there. And hopefully, through these kinds of events, it'll give people the encouragement that they need to report a crime, or to feel safe, or to start to build that opportunity to feel safe again in their communities. And I know it's not going to happen overnight, but at the same time, it's a good start, and we just need to keep moving in that direction. So thank you again for what you're doing, and good luck tomorrow in court. Appreciate your time.
And anyone in our attendees list that would like to speak on this subject? Okay, seeing none, I'll go back to my council members. And yes, Council Member Montano.
You're on
mute. You're on mute. And then council member, while you're doing that, I'm going to go to Mayor Fliger.
Thank you, President. I was about to raise my hand, but I was giving Carmen the opportunity, but I'll go ahead. So I just wanted to also just express my thanks to DA Rosen and Assemblymember Lowe for all the work they're doing. We stand with you. We support all the work you're doing. It's so important. And I will be there on Saturday, like many people on this call. And DA Rosen in Los Altos, I'm sure you remember the incident last year at our post office. And going back to the bystander role and what happened there, we had an African-American male who was in line. And because he's familiar with what racism and hate crime looks like, he immediately took out his cell phone and started recording it. And everybody else, and for those who are not familiar with the incident, in a Los Altos post office last summer, we have an Asian American female clerk. And there was a white female in the line who apparently wasn't getting the attention she thought she deserved, and started using slurs and verbally attacking this Asian American clerk. And so when the others in the line saw what was happening, they started shouting her down and said, "That's not acceptable in Los Altos." And they called the Los Altos Police Department. And by the time they got there, of course, the lady had left. So that's what solidarity looks like. That's what bystanders should do. And so thank you so much, really. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Wow, and thanks for the shout out for Los Altos, my hometown. It's great.
Yes. And DA Rosen and Assemblymember Lowe, Mayor Fliger, Mayor Constantine, and Vice Mayor Jones, they are heading up our Racial Justice Committee. And so I'm sure they will be in touch to see how we can continue to work on these very, very important issues this year, as well as in the future years. So.
But just a final comment. Thank you, Councilwoman Watanabe, and to so many of you for your incredible empathy and allyship. It is so personal to me and to so many others, and we very much appreciate it. And finally, let me just say, Jeff Rosen can't say this, but there are a number of prosecutors in the state of California that don't take the level of seriousness of hate crimes to the level extent that he does, because he sees the value and the importance of it. Just to communities up north, we'll see some in similar positions not taking the same positions, and you see the type of lawlessness in other communities, and Jeff Rosen doesn't do that, and he is responsive every single time we call on him. So thank you very much. It's not easy. You see the criticism that he is susceptible to and on the receiving end for, but we need you to be strong, and each and every one of you, thank you again for your public service.
Thank you as well. It was a pleasure to be with you tonight. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Oh, and I know Assemblymember Lowe, if you have to leave, but in case, I'm sorry, Councilmember Montano, I know you were able to get off mute. Do you have a final question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, my battery was low, so I wasn't able to click on. So so I just wanted to mention that thank you, Jeff Rosen and Assemblymember Evan Lowe, for being here and sharing your thoughts and your experiences with us. And the bottom line is, people, it's about really taking a proactive approach. We need to make sure that we have integrated neighborhoods, integrated schools, and a really integrated, diverse workforce. Because when people get together, work together, we find out the humanity of each other, and then we learn to respect each other. We learn the culture, the history, and that's where that's where the peace comes in. That's when respect comes in. So thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate all your efforts to bring it up, letting people know about the good work and about keeping safe. Thank you.
Thank you both. Oh, and thank you both again for your time tonight. And on that note, colleagues, on today's agenda, there is a draft resolution that we have put forward, and it calls on our constituents and leaders to join in condemning racist attacks against Asian Americans in all forms. Again, we're standing in solidarity. We renew our commitment to speaking out against such attacks, defend and protect those that are targeted, and seek out and punish those who commit hate crimes against members of our community. There's a draft resolution in your packet. Are there any questions on it? Okay, and then real quick, anyone in our attendees list who would like to speak to it, to the packet and the resolution? Seeing none, I'll close that and I'll turn to my colleagues if there's any comments and or a motion on the draft.
Motion to approve.
Okay, and I see if Councilmember
Yes,
Abikota, your hand was up too.
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay. And then Auden, if you wouldn't mind calling the question for everyone.
Sure, I'll start with Sayak.
Yes.
Sayak, I. Mock.
Yes.
Mock, I. Flagger.
Oh, sorry. I have some comments about resolution. Are we deliberating?
Oh, I'm sorry. When I raised for comment, with your vote, you can add your comments. We called the question. I didn't see your hand raised.
Okay.
Okay, and Flagger was I.
Was I have regions to propose, or can I propose a substitute motion?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'd like to propose a substitute motion with an amendment to the resolution.
And I'm gonna just look to our legal counsel real quick. I called the question without seeing any initial comments, and so once the question is in voting mode, can we offer a second amendment?
You're right in the middle of doing the roll. It needed to have been done before you had a first and a second, and now you need to continue with the motion.
It went on so fast. I was looking for the raise and the button.
If for some reason it fails, then you'll have an opportunity.
We didn't even ask for public comments, right?
Actually, I did ask for public comments. So yes, Council Vice Mayor Chow will finish the roll call. If it doesn't pass, please feel free to share your comments. And again, there's many opportunities in the future. The Racial Justice Committee will be continuing.
Sorry, I have serious concerns about this resolution. So can I please make my comment?
You can make your comments with your vote.
I'm Chinese, and this really is going to go against a lot of Chinese if you approve. So please don't vote to approve that.
Point of order, Chair.
I have to say.
Yes, Mayor Constantine.
I was just going to say this is highly irregular and we need to continue the vote.
Thank you.
I would agree.
So thank you for sharing your comments. And Auden, did we capture a no for Vice Mayor Chow?
Yes. Chow is nay. And
so can I make up my comment before I vote? I haven't really voted vocally.
Okay, so Vice Mayor Chow, please share your comments with your vote.
Okay, I think the inclusion of this paragraph that former President Donald Trump seemingly legitimized this whole paragraph. As we know, there are some Asian communities who support Donald Trump, although I'm independent. I'm really not. I think I hate that he used China virus. I think he has done a lot of different things that I disagree with. However, there is a significant number of Chinese Americans who support them, and Vietnamese Americans, and Korean Americans, and Indian Americans that I know, they support him. And if you are approving a resolution, including such language, making this a partisan issue, you are not really supporting Asians. You are only supporting a portion of Asians, and you are using this resolution to further marginalize those people who are minority in California, especially in the Bay Area. So please do not approve this resolution as it is. Thank you.
Comments? Auden, would you like to continue?
No.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Vice Mayor Chow. Mayor from Blankley.
Aye.
Blankley, aye. Bybee.
Aye.
Bybee, aye. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Zhao.
Aye.
Zhao, aye. Watanabe.
Aye.
Watanabe, I. Jones.
Aye.
Jones, I. Dubois.
Aye.
Dubois, I. Abakoga.
Aye.
Abakoga, I. Constantine.
Aye.
Constantine, I. Turner.
Abstain.
Turner, abstain. And Montano.
I'm going to abstain. Can I, with a comment?
Yes.
And my comment is that I will agree with the Cupertino, oh, I'm sorry, the vice mayor. I agree with her because it shouldn't, it seems like it's partisan and it shouldn't be partisan. This resolution is anti-hate crime. And for us to try to make it a partisan issue, it's not. So that's why I'm abstaining from this, from this. I'm really against the hate crimes and what they're doing to the Chinese Americans or the Chinese community or any Asian community. And for us to make it a partisan issue, that should not take precedence. So that's why I'm abstaining. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councilmember Montano. And with the vote complete, we have 12 ayes and the motion passes.
Thank you for those that shared their comments. I do want to just point out, I respect your comments. I respect your decisions. The references that were problematic were references to a report, and we did follow the county resolution language. But again, we are sharing our comments respectfully, and I thank you for sharing that. So, we have another resolution.
Chair, point of order.
Excuse me, yes.
Who'd you recognize, Chair?
Yes, Mayor Constantine.
Thank you, Chair. This is a general comment that I believe what we need to stick to the rule of order. If any of these disturbances happened in your council meetings, you would not allow that to happen. The chair gave ample opportunity for comments and opened it up for the public. I asked these members to conduct themselves the same way they would at their own council meetings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. We move now to consideration of another board resolution in commemoration of Women's History Month. I brought this specifically because this in this county, we have actually a majority of women now that are mayors. We have 8 mayors in Santa Clara County. And frankly, it's about time we celebrate some positive things given the year we had. And so again, I bring a draft resolution to your attention. I will pause to see if there are any questions on it. I will also look to our attendees if anyone from our public would like to speak to the draft resolution. Seeing none, I go back to my colleagues. Are there any questions and/or comments to the resolution? Would anyone like to make a motion?
So move.
Second.
Second.
Was that moved by Montano and
Right.
seconded?
Flagger?
Flagger? Okay, thank you. Oh. Okay, and we'll begin with Mayor Constantine.
Aye.
Constantine, I. Montano.
Aye.
Montano, I. Mock.
Aye.
Mock, I. Blankley.
Aye.
Blankley, I. Bybee.
Aye.
Bybee, I. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, I. Watanabe.
Aye.
Watanabe, I. Dubois.
Aye.
Dubois, I. Abakoga.
Aye.
Abakoga, I. Turner.
Aye.
Turner, I. Sayak.
Yes.
Sayak, I. Flagger.
Yes.
Flagger, I. Chow.
Aye.
Chow, I. Zhao.
Aye.
Zhao, I. And Jones.
Aye.
Jones, I. And with 15 votes, the motion passes.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, we have a majority of women mayors this year. And so I think Andy, Auden, and I will be reaching out to see if there's something fun that we can try and do to help continue to celebrate that sentiment. So with that, we move to committee reports, and Mayor Constantine, any recommendations from Legislative Action Committee's meeting today?
Currently, we do not have any Legislative Action Committee recommendations at this time. And I just want to say that I was privileged to chair a greatly run meeting by Andy and Auden. Thank you very much for your assistance, and as well as the members who helped me through my first very nerve-wracking meeting.
Thank you. And other committee reports. I know that we've just begun our assignments, but would any of the committee chairs like to make any announcements? Seeing none, thank you. I turn to our attendees for any public comments on anything that they'd like to share with us tonight. I see no hands raised. Oh, and I'm going to turn to, yes, Vice Mayor Chow and then Mr. Preminger.
Thank you for giving me a chance. For the record, the county resolution did not include the partisan language. I looked at it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Mr. Preminger?
Thank you very much. And just for the record, had the comments that were made when the roll call was taking place happened at the appropriate time, I, as a member of the public, would have wanted to speak up too in support of the resolution. But that's not the comment I wanted to make. I wanted to thank Andy for sending out the email to everybody today, asking any individuals who had not had a chance to speak out against the restrictions of the vaccines being sent out to everybody, being sent out to the county in the numbers that we really need to make sure we vaccinate our community. So it's not too late if you haven't sent your individual response to the governor and others to let them know that you support the county's handling the vaccine process so that we can make sure everybody gets vaccinated, especially in our harder to serve communities here in Santa Clara County.
Thank you. Any other comments from council members? Okay, and so Town Manager Pravetti, do you have a report from the city managers of Santa Clara County?
Yes, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Yesterday, the city managers met and we had a wonderful presentation by an economist by the name of John Havman. He formerly with Beacon Economics and now with a nonprofit that is educating elected leaders across the country about the importance of the economic facts as we consider policy making. He provided a slide deck that Andy has a copy of, and we would actually love to invite him to a future board meeting. So we'll bring that forward for the executive board. But the good news is that he believed that we will rebound after COVID. Obviously, there is still some uncertainty, and certainly the pandemic laid bare the inequities within our society and the hard work that we have ahead. But he had some great data, and we really think that all of you would enjoy that. We also had a great presentation from behavioral health from the county about how we can really help our staff really be their best in these difficult times. And their advice also is pertinent for families and other loved ones in our lives. So again, some really good tips as to how we can take care of ourselves as well as each other. And with that,
Thank you, Laurel. And Andy, Executive Director report.
So I wanted to make sure that everyone saw an email I sent earlier today, and it was an email from our Planning Collaborative consultants. They just were gathering data and wanted to share it with all of you. It was on objective design standards, which cities have adopted objective design standards and when. Also, they included information on housing element consultant bids, and I believe there's still, there's been a lot of questions about how much all the city's bids are coming in. And I still think that they're gathering info on that, but I thought that I would share that with what we had at this to date. We just wanted to see if you found that information, because your staffs are all sharing that information, and we're happy to share it with you as well. So just wanted to see if that was informative to you. I sent an email regarding a request today that Steve mentioned. Also wanted to let you know that after that I've had a discussion with Supervisor Chavez, and County Council will be working with our council, Kat Wellman, just about the logistics of the Saturday call issue, so that we, because we know how important that is to everyone, and everyone would like to attend, but we'll be working together with them in the future. Regarding our organizational status, President Sayoc has appointed an ad hoc committee to help through the kind of the final stages of this working on our Constitution. And she has appointed Council Member Abacoga, Mayor Flygore, and also will be Mayor Sayoc and myself will be working with Kat on moving this forward with the organizational status. Also, I would hope that you would report out to your councils, let them know that what we've been working on, and of course, please feel free to share with me anything that you think that is important for us to take up, so that we can discuss it with the executive board. So that's it for now. Thank you,
Ms. Jordan. And Mayor Fleiger.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank, I'm losing my voice, but I just really wanted to thank Andy and the Planning Collaborative for putting together that information on the housing element consultants. Found it very helpful.
And before we adjourn, are there any other, would anyone else like to share anything? Joys and challenges is something we often end with, hopefully more joys than challenges, but again, an opportunity for our colleagues to share with one another. Seeing none, I'm adjourning tonight's meeting, and thank you all for the great conversation tonight. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.